Yeah, I think we can start now. So, very good afternoon to everyone, and thank you so much for joining in here, taking your time out. Uh, I would say I'm really blessed because we have a lot of senior people in this meeting today, and I'm really happy to have all of you here in this today's afternoon. So I hope I can make some justice to your time. So without wasting any more, waiting time or anything, so we can immediately start to the topic. So I will try to fit in my discussion within 45 to 50 minutes so that we can still have 30 minutes of question answer sessions, which we can take, and then we will end our session. So I'll just share my screen. Let me know if everyone can see it. So today's topic is SME IPO, which is a really good opportunity for professionals, chartered accountants, everyone. So we are going to discuss a brief about it at a high level. Of course, I would say everyone is at a learning stage, and in fact, you would have seen a lot of investigations, or I would say interferences from SEBI as well these days, and so many courts from everywhere, because this is the happening space right now. That's why everyone is talking about it. So we are going to discuss in detail about it. So a lot of people already know about me, but I will start with a brief introduction for the people who are new to this forum today. So I am Jatin Tehri. I'm a commerce graduate, and I am a chartered accountant with more than 19 years of experience. My background is I started my career with one of the big four consulting firm, Deloitte. In fact, I started with AF Ferguson, which got merged into Deloitte. So I was lucky to have both the offer letters from Deloitte as well as AFF. Then after a couple of years, I moved into a real estate company, which was funded by Morgan Stanley. And then subsequently, I also worked in a publishing company where we did one acquisition outside India, and our company also got acquired within a couple of years. So that was year late 2009 when I started my practice. And it's been more than 14 years now into my practice. And I run both kind of things like advisory as well as CA practice. And our CA practice is also peer reviewed. And on the advisory side, we do a lot of merger acquisition, due diligence, valuations, forensics, and fraud investigations. So that's a brief about myself. And then we will get into our today's topic. So IPO under SME. So we can start with what is SME. So SME is a small and medium enterprise, and I'm sure everyone understand what is SME. But just a quick recap. So small enterprise is an enterprise where the investment in plant and machinery is not more than 10 crores, and its turnover is also not more than 50 crores. So that is categorized as small enterprise by the law. On the medium enterprise side, where the investment in plant and machinery is less than 50 crores, as in more than 10 and less than 50 crores, and the turnover is not exceeding 250 crores in any financial year, is considered as a medium enterprise. So these are the two categories which are eligible to go for any SME IPO. Micro, you would have heard MSME also these days because of the income tax law regulation, which is coming into picture these days. But micro is not applicable or not eligible to go for SME IPO. So what is SME IPO? So SME, and what is the differentiator as far as the main board and other things are concerned? So SME IPO, you would have already heard that there is a main board with BSE and NSE both, and there is also a small exchange with BSE and NSE both. So significantly the change, because uh, this is one of the, I would say, very good step of this government. Although the discussion started with the previous government and nothing happens overnight, but this was a very good step by this Modi government, where they actually pushed the SME towards the IPO segment. And you would have seen in last 2-3 years only post COVID, SME has really picked up like anything. So typically, what is the difference between a main board and a small board is uh, SEBI does not interfere too much into the operations or approval process of SME IPO. They have actually delegated this power to the stock exchanges, to Bombay Stock Exchange and National Stock Exchange. Whereas in the main board, they actually directly interfere with any kind of approval. So it is like a prior approval, as we see in RBI cases. There is a automatic route and there is an approval route. So it is like the same thing. When it comes to main board, it is an approval route where SEBI verifies each and every information and they give a consent before any company can reach to the main board. Whereas when it comes to SME IPO, it is the power which is delegated to the stock exchanges. Although we do a filing with SEBI as well, but ultimately it is the approval with the stock exchange. So this is a basic difference. Now, what is the eligibility criteria to reach to these? So both BSc and SC, as we discussed, both have got their own requirements, and the main requirement is that which is similar in both the cases is post-issue paid-up capital should not be more than 25 crores when it comes to the listing of SME, and this we are talking about a face value. But then we come to the track record as far as profitability is concerned. So BSc says that out of 3 years, in the last 2 years, you should be profitable. And if you are not profitable for 2 years, let's say you are profitable in 1 year out of 3 years, your minimum net worth requirement gets increased to 5 crores. So that is the requirement of BSc. When it comes to NSE, NSE says you should have a track record of at least 3 years. Positive cash flow should be there for at least 2 years, and a positive net worth should be there in 2 financial years. That is the mere minimum requirement. So summarizing this entire requirement, we can say that the company should have been older by at least 3 financial years to be able to reach to BSc or NSE small exchange, and then only the minimum net worth requirement can come into picture, and then subsequently you can take it to IPO. And then of course basis face value, you have to calculate that the post-issue capital should not be more than 25. Then there are certain other listing requirements also, which says that you should have not gone to BIFR, which is like, we can get into detail, but this was the summary of the eligibility requirement. So then we come to what is the difference between SME exchange and main board listing. So SME exchange says the minimum post-issue paid-up capital requirement is 3 crores. Minimum here we are talking about. Maximum is 25 crores. Main board says 10 crores. And there is another very, very important thing where SEBI had been very vigilant as a regulator. And they say that without underwriting agreement with any of the merchant bankers, you cannot go to the SME board. Then there is another very important requirement as far as SME is concerned is the market making. So a lot of people would know what market making is, but I will take 1 minute to explain. So market making is like a legal insider trading. I call it in my term, but it is not the exact term. So it is like if you have already, you actually park certain portion of your shares with the merchant banker, whose responsibility is to ensure that if some seller is there in the market, he can actually buy those shares from the sellers. So because the liquidity in SME is very, very less, because when we are talking about 25 crore of paid up capital, even if the valuation is like 200 crore or whatever, let's say 50 crore worth of shares, 25%, 50 crore worth of shares are there in the market. So the liquidity is very less. So to counter to that, SEBI has made it mandatory that the market making agreement has to be done for next 3 years with the merchant bankers, so that if any seller comes to sell to the market, he should be able to sell its shares. Then we talk about the timelines. So typical timeline is 3 to 4 months, but this is like a very theoretical timeline. But practically speaking, it takes about 6 to 9 months, and really depends upon how much the company is prepared, what kind of financial statement are ready with the company, what kind of professionalism is there in the company, whether they can actually keep on preparing their results on time or not, they can get their restatement financial done on time or not. So really depending upon that, if everything is ready, we can consider 3 to 4 months, which is like a very, very good timeline. But when we talk about the main board, it takes about 8 to 10 months or sometimes more than that also, if everything is ready. So another important requirement, which we have already discussed, is SEBI approval is not required in SME exchange, whereas we have to file the document with SEBI, but their approval is not required. It is under automatic route. On the other hand, when we talk about the main board, SEBI approval for DRHP is the primary condition, which is definitely there. And then the other differentiator between the two is IPO application size. So the IPO application size in case of SME exchange is 1 lakh rupees, whereas in main board it is like 10 to 15,000 depending upon number of unit, what is the face value, what is the price of the share, and that's how it is. IPO time frame we have already discussed. So some other guidelines related to SME exchanges, minimum capital dilution which is mandated is 25% and 5% of 25%, which is like 26.25% of the post-issue capital has to be diluted when we are talking about SME exchange. And this 1.25% is related to the market maker. So we have to park those shares with the merchant banker so that he can keep on keeping the float or liquidity into the market. Then we talk about minimum subscription requirement is 50 LOTs because there could be large investors also. And you would be surprised to know these days, even Morgan Stanley, they are investing into SME exchange. So they have created a separate fund for it. And recently, last one of the cases, they invested about 2.5 crore, which is a very small amount for them. But that shows their commitment and understanding of the Indian market. So which is a very, very good thing. Time required for migration from SME exchange to main board is 2 years. So that's a typical guideline as far as SME IPO is concerned. So before we proceed, do we have any questions till now, if we wish to take?
Yes, Jatin ji, I do have a question.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think आपने विंटेज की बात नहीं की. विंटेज की बात अभी होने वाली है या अभी पूछ सकता हूँ उससे रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन?
Yeah, please.
तो विंटेज में मेरा एक पॉइंट है that if there are certain companies which are currently LLP, so if they get converted into the company, though they are having the business vintage of already more than 3 years, but if they are getting themselves converted into company, how BSE or NSE will be treating them?
So that is absolutely allowed. So you should have a track record of 3 years, and then if it is converted from LLP to private limited or private limited to limited, that is absolutely allowed.
They will be immediately able to file.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
So so now we are going to discuss what kind of opportunities are available with the chartered accountants and the professionals engaged, and how we can actually add value to our clients. So I would say, first of all, we have got in today's session itself, we had more than 200 registrations, but of course, due to multiple reasons, people were not able to join also. But otherwise, also we have good gathering of people from the industry, from the Big Four, from consulting world, and from legal fraternity also. So we have got all kind of people in the today's session. So I can tell you that this work of IPO, whether SME or main board, it is actually a collective effort of a team. So you need to have merchant banker in your team. You have to have lawyers in your team. You have to have company secretaries in your team, and of course you have to have auditors, chartered accountants, internal auditors, statutory auditors. All kind of people have to have work in tandem with each other so that we can make this successful. And of course, we can never discount the contribution of the promoter, and they have to be very, very open-minded to support the professionals to take their company to the SME exchange. So now we will briefly touch upon what kind of opportunities are there. Of course, as we all know that statutory audit is the very, very first and the foremost requirement. But the statutory audit has to be done by a peer-reviewed firm. So if any CA practitioner wants to get into this domain, he needs to get his firm peer-reviewed to be eligible to sign the balance sheet of a company which is going for an IPO. So that is the very, very first requirement. Then, of course, when a company is going for an SME exchange, although the requirement may not be there for the internal audit because of the turnover criteria or any other thing, because the smaller companies are also allowed. But of course, for a good governance and for good internal controls and processes, they can also have internal audit mechanism, which can also be done by the CAs. Then we will talk about the IPO advisory. Then the IPO advisory is a very vast field. And again, I would say it is not a one person's job to take care of the end-to-end advisory thing. So one person can actually be involved into a planning stage where they can prepare the company to reach to the IPO goal. Then, of course, the other person can take care of the compliance. Then there could be a coordinator, project coordinator, who can take care of end-to-end coordination between all the people involved. Like I very easily said that lawyers, company secretaries, and the merchant bankers and the valuers and all other people are involved into this process. But sometimes when we are talking about a small and medium enterprise, resource is also a big problem. So a CFO or a finance head may not be in a position to handle all the people at one go. So it is always advised that they should have one point coordinator who can take care of the data and all other information flow from each and every person. So that is also a very important role. And if somebody is starting, I would say that's my recommendation to any young chartered accountant. If you are starting your career and trying to build yourself into the IPO advisory, I think that could be a very good starting point where you can become a project coordinator for the IPO process. You can manage the entire information flow. You can create the deal room, and you can also create the data rooms, and that's how you can manage and learn the entire process. Then, of course, there is another requirement of support to the merchant bankers. Then there is a requirement for a due diligence, valuation, all other thing. Just to add here, a merchant banker independently, irrespective of what auditor is writing, is also required by the law to do its own due diligence. So they are also required to submit their report to the stock exchange and SEBI that they have conducted their own due diligence. So when it comes to the DD, us as CAs can also provide that kind of support to any of the companies. So when we are talking about SME IPO, I can tell you the fundamentals of SME and main board are same. It's just that some of the liberties have been given to SME as far as the filings are concerned, but otherwise fundamental rules and regulations are same, that they have to run through the entire process. But to keep the cost low and to keep the timelines under control, SEBI has liberalized a lot of the restrictions and the requirements. Then, of course, any chartered accountant who is into wealth advisory and other things, they can also participate into SME listings, where they can provide anchor investors, where they can also bring in retail investors and all other people, and they can present their clients on the wealth advisory side the good opportunities. Then, of course, on the other side, we have got a lot of other certification services. And then finally, when we are talking about IPO, of course, you have a requirement of independent board. So you can, through your sources or yourself, can also become independent director into any of the companies. But of course, there are a lot of things we will run through the key milestones or the phases of any of the preparedness of SME exchange, or I can call it as an IPO process, because as we discussed, fundamentally 80% of the process is same. It's just that in SME you might be running for 50 crore of IPO. On the main board, you might be running for a 500 crore IPO. So the very first process is understanding, analyzing, and restructuring. Of course, you have to understand about the company. So maybe I'll quickly go through that, and then we have detailed IPO preparation slides also. So then we have to have pre-IPO readiness assessment preparation. Then we get into the due diligence stage, where we do financial, business, legal, all kind of DDs. Then we have offer drafting stage and the final offer document. Then we have a complete market strategy, how we are going to hit the market, what are the timings and all of the things, where we have to take care of the other competitors also, what kind of IPOs are coming. And that is also dependent upon merchant bankers occupancy, which is really high these days. Then we talk about the pricing, which is the almost last leg. Although even before signing any sort of mandate with any of the client, the very first question by any of the promoter is, what is going to be the price of my company? I mean, what is the valuation of my company? But legally speaking, the pricing comes at the end. But of course, you have to be prepared for the valuation of the company in advance. Even a ballpark number for sake of discussion is also very good. Or sometimes I would say, if we are talking about an opportunity, that becomes the first and the foremost opportunity while we discuss with the promoter. We can suggest the promoter, okay, before we talk about anything else, let's get your valuation done. Let's talk about your valuation. And then basis that discussion, we can strategize the other details. Then, of course, the listing and the market making is the last step. So now we come to the phase one, which is a pre-IPO preparation phase. So here, I mean, it is a stage where I would say that all the strategies and the planning and everything is sorted. Promoter has also decided that, okay, I'm going for an IPO. Let's start the process. So this is the start of the process, pre-IPO preparation. So the first thing is appointment of the merchant banker, which has to be a category one registered, SEBI registered merchant banker. And they may, within their group or outside, could also have a lead manager or underwriters into their circle. Then comes the appointment of a legal advisor who has to act on behalf of the company, and he has to support the merchant banker as well. So when I say, I mean, I'm talking about the steps, but practically speaking, generally, whenever any company is going for an IPO, generally it is like a collective effort where most of these people come in one go. As in, merchant banker might recommend a legal advisor might recommend a merchant banker or a valuer or other people involved into the process. So again and again, you might be listening that I'm repeating that one has to work in a team to be able to successfully deliver to the client what is expected. So it is not a one man's job, it is a teamwork. Then we talk about increase in the authorized capital based on the desired IPO size if required. If the company doesn't have the authorized capital already in the company. Then, of course, the passing of resolution that we are going for an IPO, and this is going to be the fresh issue of shares. Then, subsequently, the very important part is, and of course, when we do a planning, we actually start with this process where we start preparing the restated financials for last 3 years. And as we discussed, it has to be done by a peer-reviewed auditor. Now, here we have not mentioned, but I can add to it. The requirement says the 3-year financials have to be restated by the existing auditor. But in case the auditor is a new and not has not signed the previous year financial statements. So the law says that if he is a new auditor, he's a peer-reviewed auditor, and he has not signed the last full financial year, he will have to do a re-audit for that full financial year. So just this is a technical point which I wanted to share, so that somebody has to take care. And we encounter this on SME companies on a regular basis, where the promoters immediately agree, okay, let's change the auditor because we need a peer-reviewed firm. But they forget that if the previous year audit has not been done by the peer review auditor, he will have to re-sign the financial statement. So that is a very important point. Then, of course, as we discussed, the restructuring of the board, where we need independent directors and a quality board, I would say. And here I would add one more thing, which is based on my experience. So whenever we plan any IPO for any of our clients, I always tell my clients that you have to assess yourself how much depth you have in your business and how much depth you have in your industry. So without assessing your business and your industry, you should not go for an IPO, specifically the SME IPO. And particularly based on my experience, what I have seen is only 2 out of 10 companies are really eligible to reach to that level, because the companies have to think next 5 years. If they have the capacity, if the promoter has the capacity to reach to the main board in next 3 to 5 years, that's my criteria, then only they should talk about SME exchange. Otherwise, you know what is going to happen is they will raise the funds and they will also deploy the funds, but they will get burdened with the compliance. And that should not be the thought process. There should definitely be a growth in the company as well as in the industry, so that you can actually see the growth potential in next 5 years. And that's where we all professionals will also be very happy, and the investor would also want to see how much potential is there into this company. So any good investor will come into that company if they see a good potential for next 5 years, 10 years. So next is the due diligence process, which has to be done. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, hi sir. Just had one question on the thing you have mentioned about कि जो अगर कोई auditor है who has been recently appointed freshly, तो और they have to make the special purpose audit of the last full financial year, right?
Yes, but it has to be a full financial year where you can see the ICDR guidelines where they've exempted a lot of things, like you don't need to do the IFC, you don't need to do the CARO reporting and all other things. So it is like a special purpose audit only.
So a simple special purpose audit only, and based on that special purpose audit, the restatements will be considered.
Yes, so you have to do a full-fledged audit. First of all, you have to give a proper audit report for the audit. But you can escape the CARO and all other things. A detailed guideline has been given in ICDR guidelines. You can refer to that.
So just understood, and thank you so much for that. Just one more question about that. Ki suppose we are filing the DRHP in the month of May or June. So उस time पे तो we'll have to do the restatements up till March only, right? The March of this current.
6 महीने 6 months से ज़्यादा old financial statements आप use नहीं कर सकते हो. Which means if you are talking about May, June, July, August, September, you can use up to March.
Up to March, okay. The stub period cannot be the difference between stub period and DRHP cannot be more than 6 months.
Yes. तो अगर फॉर एग्जांपल अगर हम बात करें कि हम अक्टूबर में लेकर आ रहे हैं तो मेरा 6 महीना निकल चुका है मार्च से. So I have the option to add 1 month, 3 months, or 6 months, whatever I want to. So there is stub period is not defined. 1 month भी हो सकता है, 2 months भी हो सकता है, 3 months भी हो सकता है. Anything is possible.
Okay. And yes, sorry, just one more. Yes, special purpose audit is.
We'll have to give other people time.
Sorry. Yeah,
maybe we can chat again. I'll share my contact details with you. Yeah, we have Tasneem. You are asking some question.
Yeah, hi, sir.
Hi.
Great to talk to you again. If you remember, I had contacted you before also.
Yes, yes. Yes, please.
My network is a little shaky. I mean, if it goes well, then I'll put my question now. So this was the on the RFS bit. You said last 3 years we'll have to re-sign it if we are not the peer-reviewed auditor.
No, I'm not saying you have to re-sign last 3 years. If you are not a peer-reviewed auditor, you have to sign only one full financial year. Restatement anyways is a completely different ball game where you have to sign the complete set of restated financial in a compilation of 3 years.
Okay, so the RFS only we have to sign, no, in that case.
No. What I'm saying is, for example, FY24, you are not the auditor. After that, you become the auditor and you are going to sign the restated financial for last 3 years, which includes 24, 23, and 22. But you had not been the auditor for 24. Somebody else has signed it. So you will have to go back and re-sign the financial statement for 24.
Correct. So that was my understanding. So my question was, out of the 3 years, 1 year I have been the peer reviewed auditor for them, and the balance 2 years, previous 2 years, I wasn't.
Then there is no requirement to re-sign.
No requirement. Okay, because then I would have relied on the previous year's numbers, and with that logic, the previous year's numbers are good.
Yes, perfect. Then we have another question, whether Ind AS is applicable on SME. So specifically, ICDR guidelines have exempted SME for going with Ind AS. So we can simply use IGAP. So there is another question which is related to audit report special purpose. I think we have already answered this. Maybe we can discuss this again separately. So coming back.
I'm sorry, sir. One very quick question because this is related to the RFS bit. In case the signing is not done, say we miss out the requirement, so the query will come from NSDL or stock exchange, or they might also miss it. I mean, does it come as a query if you happen to miss that stuff, or you can bypass it?
So certainly there will be a query, but before the query, I would say we are chartered accountants. We are bound by the regulations. So it will be like a I would say professional misconduct on our part. That we bypassed or we tried to bypass the regulation.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now coming to the due diligence part. So we discussed what kind of DD has to be done. So there is a financial DD, business DD, and legal DD. which is the required to be conducted by a merchant banker, and they have their own ways of conducting it. But typically they prefer to do manufacture. If there is a manufacturing plant, they typically prefer to visit the facility and the factory, want to understand the business about the company. They need to understand what kind of concentration of risk is there, concentration of clients, customer, business is there, what kind of other risk they can also see into the company, whether this is highly regulated industry or not. These kind of things are required to be done. Beyond the ROC compliance verification, statutory compliance verification, and all other requirements. These are the requirements as far as DD is concerned is there. So then comes to the offer document. Typically, what the offer document contains is regulations related to the Companies Act, then SEBI ICDR guidelines, then SEBI LODR guidelines. So I've just highlighted what kind of guidelines you have to take care when we are preparing the offer document. ICDR guidelines are related to issue of capital and disclosure requirement. LODR is related to listing obligation and disclosure requirement regulations, which is there applicable for SMEs. And then, of course, the BSC or NSE listing requirements you have to take care beforehand. Then typically what kind of heads are there in any of the offer document is a capital structure, as in what is the shareholding pattern of the company, what is going to be the proposed shareholding pattern of the company, how many institutional investors are already there into the company, what is the promoter structure, and all other things. And then, of course, the business overview, what kind of business they are into. As we have already discussed, a lot of things are taken out at the discussion phase or during the due diligence phase. Then, of course, what is the object of the issue? And this is very, very important. And when we are talking about SME exchange, this becomes utmost important, that you need to understand how much money you are going to raise and what is the end utilization of that money. So mind it, if we are the auditors, if we are giving any sort of certification, we have to be very clear that tomorrow, once they have raised the fund, we will also have to give the certification and the audit report saying this much amount of money was raised and whether that has been used for that purpose or not. As an auditor, we have to sign that once the company has raised the funds. So we have to be very clear what is the purpose for which the promoters are going to raise the money. And we have to understand from them in detail. And that is a general business understanding about your client. And then, of course, we have to understand about what kind of litigations are there in the company. They have filed cases or the cases have been filed against them and all other things. And then, of course, if they have a complete management team, professional team, and all other people, we have to mention about that. And very particularly, we need company secretaries on the roll. We need CFO, finance head on the rolls. Who become invariable part of any of the management in SME companies. Then, of course, we need to mention about the promoter and their promoter group. So here I would add one more thing, which probably we are not discussing today. If we are the auditor or signing of any of the things, related party transaction becomes very, very important as far as the role of auditor, legal advisor, or any of the merchant banker is concerned. So you have to be very careful what kind of transactions are happening between the promoter group companies. And that is not only from our perspective, that is from the industry perspective also, market perspective also. So too many promoter or related party transaction raises a lot of concerns. So we have to be very careful about it. Then we are talking about the intermediaries, as in we have to appoint the RTAs, registrar to the issues, depositories, CDSL, NSDL, and all other people. Then we need to have market makers, bankers to the issues, printers, advertising agencies. Then we can also help as a professional in executing all those agreements. Then we are talking about the submission of all the documents. This is the second last phase where we are reaching out to the regulators for submission of the documents. So all material documents which are required, as in there are multiple certifications which are allowed. So just a hypothetical number, when we are talking about a main board, approximately 30 to 35 certificates are there which are beyond the restated financials. So you could understand the gravity of those certifications which are required to be done and submitted to all the regulators and the stock exchange. Then, of course, demat shares and what is going to be the lock-in of pre-IPO placements or the promoter shares. That is also a very important document which is to be submitted to the regulator or exchange. Then we prepare the draft offer document, which we submit to the stock exchange and seek their in principle approval. So typically this kind of an approval as on today comes between 30 to 45 days. But as the market is improving and growing and there had been phenomenal results, SEBI is also active now. So we can expect that certain delays are going to be there in next few months. Then of course is the filing of final offer document with the ROC, which is approved by the stock exchange. Then we have to, this is just before opening the IPO. This is exactly before opening process. Then of course, monitoring of flow of application, the real-time discussion with the management, investors and all other things. And then of course, the final stages, the coordination with the bankers, registrar for deposit of money, application of money, finalization of allotment list in consultation with the stock exchange. And again, I would add that this is to be certified by the promoters, merchant bankers, as well as the auditors or the chartered accountants. So all these stages are very, very crucial when we talk about the IPO process from an advisory perspective or from any other perspective. Then final is the listing assistance stage, where final listing is going to happen. ASBA bank accounts are there and the bankers are finalized and they are receiving the money. And then is the next is the allotment of shares stage, where in consultation of merchant bankers, registrars, RTAs and stock exchange, we have to allot the shares. Then creating of shares to the respective accounts and corporate action, unblocking of funds, advertisement for basis of allotment and all other things are there. Then is the final stages, which is like coordinating and assisting in interview with stock exchange listing advisory committee, and then finally listing of at the stock exchange and assisting in listing formalities and a start of the trading. This is the last and the final stage of the process. As of now, this is probably we are reaching towards the end of our discussion. So this is like the SME stats, which is available as of now on both the websites. So in SME exchange, we have got 488 companies so far. On NSE Emerge, we have about 397 listings so far. Both the exchanges have helped SME companies to raise about 1 lakh crore each exchange, which is like a very, very phenomenal number. This is the market cap of the listed entities as of now, which collectively is like 2 lakh crores. The money which they have raised is close to 6,200 crores and 7,800 crores. So which is very less as compared to the market cap of these companies. But again, I mean, we all value all the companies basis the market cap, whether it is a paper money or whatever we can call it. But still, both the numbers are very important. Then how many companies have got shifted to the main board? This is a very critical number. And I just love this number because that shows the strength of the emerging markets. So 183 out of 488 companies have already shifted to main board in BSE, and 138 companies out of 397 companies have already shifted to the main board from NSE, which is a very, very good number. As on date, we have got 300 companies on BSE listed and about 259 companies on the SME exchange. So that's it from my side. Now, if we have any questions, happy to answer and we can discuss. I hope I have tried to discuss as quickly as I could.
Jatin, very small question. This is Arun Saini.
Sure, sir.
What is the broad range of expenses which one needs to keep in mind while planning a IPO like this?
Sir, this is a very advanced question, I would say, and you are straight to the bottom line. I mean, that shows your 40 years of experience.
Any place, where the planning is to go, the first thing basically anybody would come out with is, the promoter would come and think of is, what is the hit he's going to take before he actually gets the money and before he gets his company listed on the stock exchange?
Sure, sir. So because this is a very closed group, I would say, and we are all professionals, so I can share that number, but that's just a ballpark number, and that's based on my experience.
Ballpark number is good enough.
It can differentiate from one person to other, and depending upon team and the complexity and other things. So subject to this disclaimer, I can tell you that if we are talking about SME exchange, typical ballpark fixed expense is close to 40 to 50 lakhs. And the variable expense ranges from 10 to 15 or sometimes 20% also. But that's a very, very variable number, and that's a very broad range. So typically, I'll tell you how we operate on that magnitude is we typically, when we engage with the merchant bankers, they have got a lot of cost involved into this process because they have to do a lot of advertisement and all other things. And the smaller the size is, the expenses are more in terms of the fixed cost, and the percentage also goes higher. So typically, what we do is we create a general understanding of how much money we are raising, how much expense is going to be there, and we agree with the merchant bankers in advance or the wealth advisors in advance that for this much amount of valuation or this much amount of raising of money, we will dilute this much amount of this much percentage of my shares. Then rest is yours. I mean, that's a practical answer. I'm giving it to you, but of course, this practicality cannot be written on the paper. But I'm sharing that practical view with you. That is the best way of dealing with it. But otherwise, what happens is if you agree on, let's say, 10%, and tomorrow the expenses are more, at the last moment you will not be able to renegotiate with the bankers, and bankers have all the reasons to back out from any of the IPO because they're very smart people, and for them we are like one of the case, and they deal in these cases day in day out. So there could be any reasons of disagreement. So it is always good that you should have a basic understanding on the valuation of the company. One, basic understanding of how much percentage of stake we are going to dilute, and basic understanding on how much money we are going to raise. If you have these three numbers in your hand, you can easily calculate how much percentage of expense is going to be there. And I will add one more thing. And there is a very famous saying in the merchant bankers lobby, you have to leave something on the table, which is a hard truth also. So sometimes, no matter how much arrangements or agreements you had with your client or the promoters, the market forces define your valuation. And at the last moment, you should actually be ready to face that. I hope I was able to answer this question.
Thank you, Jatin. Big relief.
Sir, one question from my side. You said that we need to have an understanding. I mean, what is the best source of knowledge that we can attain for SME IPO, or the books that you would refer for someone who is new to the industry who wants to explore this particular field?
Okay. So I would say I have gained all this knowledge based on experience, based on working with the clients. So, but I'll give you a way of dealing with it. This is, as I mentioned previously also, this is a teamwork. So get into a team. Get into a team of chartered accountants who have already done it. Get into a team of lawyers, merchant bankers who have already done it. So that's where you will gain the knowledge. And as I also mentioned previously, if you have a direct client who wants to get into SME, best way is you become a coordinator for them to manage all the parts. That will give you real knowledge. And once you have gone through the entire process of one case, of course, every case is different, but you have gone through one case, you will have a lot of knowledge about it. So the answer to your question is get associated with the experienced people and gain some practical on ground experience. And that's where you will be able to successfully get into this field.
Okay, sir. Fair enough. Yeah.
So I think, Siddharth, I have already answered on the costing side. Rakesh, your question is related to corporate governance. Yes, definitely there is a requirement of a corporate governance where typically 1/3 of the board is required to be independent, and you need to have independent directors on the board, and you are also required to create certain basic committees which are also there in the main board IPO companies. So you need to have independent audit committees and remuneration committees and shareholders committees. That is a bare minimum requirement for going for any corporate governance into any SME company also.
Jatin,
Thank you.
I have one question.
Sure, sir.
But I have seen, as per my experience, particular for my young chartered accountants, they may not be having this much of experience, but we have gained the experience that equity is more costlier than the debt. This is my
Certainly. Certainly,
This
sir.
is my-
You raised a very, very valid point. And I think that shows again your decades of experience. So, sir, you are absolutely right. Equity is always the costliest form of raising the money. But I'll tell you some of the positive sides of it also. So, when we are talking about SME, sir, let's say they have a turnover about 50 to 100 crores, any company, and they already having a small unit or a factory which is a supplier to any of the. Typically, you will find good SMEs in B2B segments. They might be supplying to any of the automobile companies or white goods companies or any other companies. So typically, those kind of companies are there which are considered to be good companies because you need to see their secure business also. So when we talk about any 50 to 100 crore company, they are running one plant and they want to set up another plant, which could be 2x of their existing size. And for example, they may require 50 crore of money into the company. In that situation, they might already have certain existing limits into their company, where, for example, 20-30 crore of bank loan is there, 10-20 crore of CC limit is there, or anything like that. I'm just giving you hypothetical numbers. So in those situations, it is very difficult to raise another 50 crore. So no VC, private equity, or any other person will jump into that SME sector. Leaving aside some of the impact funds, I mean, we already have some impact funds also in our today's conversation. But typically, no VC will jump into this because they look for technology investments or something like that. In that situation, SME is a very good option or the only option available to them, where they are not afraid that if tomorrow any COVID comes in, they will have to return the money, they will be debt ridden or any other thing. So the good part is you are getting your 25% partners into the company without losing too much of control. Of course, you have to have good governance practice and disclosure requirements and presentation of financial statements on a regular basis. But otherwise, even after diluting 20% or 25% of the stake, nobody is going to take control from your company. Promoters is in charge of its own company. So that's the positive side of it. But of course, yes, as you rightly mentioned, one has to consider that is the costliest form of raising the money.
Thank you, Jatin.
Ravi ji is asking, corporate governance focused on risk mitigation and forensic audit is the way forward. You are absolutely right. And this is another area of practice which can be developed by the new chartered accountants. And maybe moving forward, we will also have one more session on the forensic audit. In fact, I want to mention here that we are going to have a regular session because I'm really, really happy to see the enthusiasm and the participation into this webinar, because this is was my first webinar, and this was give a credit to Dikshit ji, who motivated me to get into this particular. I mean, we were just having a regular chat, and he said, "Why don't you do this webinar on this particular session? Because a lot of people are interested." So that's how I got started, and I'm also enjoying the process. As in, when I was creating the presentation, I was also thinking that this is really a very, very good thing, which I should contribute back to my profession. And we are going to definitely continue with sessions in the future also. Yes, sir. Arun sir wants to ask.
No, there's no question, no specific question, Jatin.
Okay, sure. So, Mr. Loda, what is your opinion to apply for the SME IPO? Sir, you are talking about as an investor, as a retail investor. So I would say one has to be careful. So when it comes to the equity market, anyways, one has to be very, very careful. But of course, I would say you need to study the offer document in detail to understand what kind of information has been shared. So it is beyond what is given and what you can analyze. So I can share my experience. So what I look into any offer document of any, whether main board or SME board, anything, what I look into anything is I don't run after the frenzy of 10 times or 20 times or whatsoever is going into the market. So what I look into is what kind of disclosures that company has given to the general public. It is not about what they have given. I mean, as a professional, at least I know you are an ex-banker retired from a very senior position. You would know and understand that, I mean, it is like reveal less. And I mean, it is that situation where, I mean, I'm getting some different thoughts, but I'm not sharing that in this forum. So it is like you have to be very careful what information has not been shared with the general public. You have to find that out. And you have to find the intent of the company, whether they are honest about giving the disclosure or not. That is my personal basis of applying into any of the IPO, no matter SME or main board.
Thank you, Jatanji. Let me share some of the important things from the banker's point of view. First of all, not only I am the bankers, presently I am also the senior vice president in the Mewar Chamber of Commerce Industry in Bhilwara, where 700 what you call SME industries are there in Bhilwara clusters. Okay.
Wonderful.
Our Mewar Chamber is the one of the pioneer in the what you call associations who are handling it. What basically we need technical aspects so that you can guide them. These things are there. But ultimately, the marketing is most important thing. Most of the SME elders, they are not aware how to proceed. Still, they would like to work like a Sethji. So, if they are approaching the bankers and bankers are dictating terms and conditions, look, do this thing, that thing, all of the things are there. But ultimately, when they are able to get some cheaper funds and having a leverage ratio at the competitive rates in the market, then they would like to move that particular parts. What is the first thing required? First thing required to convince the particular industry or SME account holders, let you have a potentiality. Today you may be SME, tomorrow you are going to be a medium size, then the large size. So this is your role, what you call path. So that particular we have to identify some of the industry and we have to meet regularly, giving or calling that persons, thereafter giving the all technical aspect that you to prepare the balance sheet, all other things are there. It is all the job which is done by the what you call the any of the merchant bankers. But the important part is to bring in our fold. That's the most important thing. Here also recently within the 2 years, around 4 or 5 SME IPO has been done from the Bhilwara. Okay, and there's a lot of scopes are there because Bhilwara surroundings not only the textile but minerals, agro products, or what you call that granites and what marbles, they are coming up a lot more. And even you will feel wonder that in Rajasthan, Jodhpur is the #1 city where the list NPA is there. #2 is the Bhilwara. So people are very cautious, equal, and the bankers. So it is required to be done both the sides, bankers also. Because if we are going to conduct, so if any of the sanction advice or if the sanction, credit sanction is given to them, if we are going to tell them, you just plan something equity, not by your relatives or not by what you call other parties. Let us go from the IPO. These are the plus points I advantage here. So that can be done. #1. #2, that you did good job. But if your time permits, you can come to Bhilwara and have a program for our what you call members. So they will understand what the kinds of things is required. So otherwise, all other aspects, filing the papers, for system procedure, balance sheet, or other things, that's all rituals things which can be done. Compliance part, that is not the big problem. Big problem is to how to bring in our fold. That is the most important thing. But to bring them in our fold, we also have a little knowledge. So at least we can convince whenever they are asking it. So my open invitation to you, whenever you feel convenient and comfortable, you please tell us. We will organize some program in a Mewar Chamber of Commerce and we'll conduct something good for you.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the invitation, sir. We will definitely plan that. Now we have got another question on, can you throw some light on merchant banking license and requirements? So Mohit, what we are going to do is, and that was a suggestion from a very senior member also, as we move forward and progress in our webinars, series of webinars, what we are also going to do is, because SME IPO, I have just touched upon, I would say, not only 5% of what is required to be learned, right? So how we are going to share more knowledge is, we will invite, let's say, merchant bankers, legal advisors, company secretaries in our subsequent series, where we can have their interviews or their session on certain specific topics as well, so that the general awareness about the entire process gets inculcated into our domain. So we are definitely going to cover that with one of the merchant banker in the subsequent sessions. So Ayush, thank you so much. Really appreciate your comments. So yeah, Hiralal ji, how to build practice in internal audit and valuation? So sir, one word answer to your question is networking. So as I can say that a lot of people have built their strength on the statutory audit side, on the merchant banking side, valuation side, forensics, and all other things. So if you have focus on the internal audit, build your focus and network with your fellow colleagues. And I can assure you that a lot of work comes within the reference from the CAs. So I would say the biggest weakness of chartered accountants is we don't network with each other. So if we start networking, as in we outsource a lot of work also. It's not only about outsourcing, but we also refer a lot of work in our team and the circle. So that's how you can network within your circle, and definitely you can generate a lot of work for yourself. So Nikhil ji, one question, there is some sort of stigma attached to SME IPO, wherein several merchant bankers don't advise to go considering low response. So, okay, so what I will say is definitely there are certain concerns, and as I mentioned previously also, not every company is, irrespective of the legal requirement of the eligibility criteria, not many companies are really worth of going for an IPO. It is not only about raising money. So money is not a problem. As far as SME IPO is concerned, people are sitting on cash, want to invest. But the problem is you need to have and you need to find a good company. So definitely you have to break that perception. And if good companies are available, then definitely there is no problem as far as money is concerned.
No,
So,
Jatin, I would like to ask only one question from all the people who are joined. The concept of the market maker, you have to elaborate something on this, because I have seen one or two issues which I name here. Market maker means the businessman doesn't understand what is the real market making and unnecessarily being entangled with the operator side. Let me put in a very blunt manner.
no, you are known for your, I would say, blunt advice to the industry, and that's a very good thing, sir. So market making is a legal term as far as SME IPO is concerned. The government, the regulator, they also want a support system to be generated for the retail investors and for the promoters. So one should be very careful while choosing the merchant bankers as well as their support system, because as which sir rightly said, that you should not get trapped with the operators, and they have all the capabilities to manipulate 50, 100, 200 crore size of a company. So you have to choose your partners, and I mean, I'm talking to the clients, or I'm talking to the professionals. We have to advise our clients, guide them that they should not get trapped with the operators. So promoters has to be very, very clear while calculating what kind of investors are getting into the picture. And let me tell you one more thing, and this thing is coming from your question, sir. So the point here is, when we do any SME IPO, we have 100% investors in our hand before we go for an IPO. So this is a reverse underwriting concept. We know who is going to invest and who is going to take charge of the company. So that should also be known to the promoters, and that is not like Hawa mein. It is like we will introduce all our investor base to the promoters. Investors will interview the promoters, try to understand the business and all other things. And that is other way around also, where promoters are getting to know what kind of investors are going to invest into my company. So having a very, very good investor network and base and subscribers into your company is very important. Otherwise, as which sir said, there is a very high probability that you might get trapped in the hands of the operators. So that's a very right risk to be mitigated and to be taken care of.
Thank you, Jatin. Just I wanted to update my young CS.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. See, I mean, that's the experience. You are asking the right questions so that it can come out of me. I had been going extempo what I wanted to say, but when a very good quality question comes, then only you can answer to that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Chetan is asking would the recording would be available. That I think, Chetan, to be very honest, I will have to discuss with my team, and then probably we will get back to you. But I can assure you one thing. We are going to have these kind of interactive and knowledge sharing sessions, not only from my side, but from the industry experts and from all other people associated with us on a regular basis. That I can assure you.
Jatin, how about sharing the presentation to the team or the people who
Sure.
have attended? They might be interested
Sure,
in
sir.
looking
The
into
people
it.
who have attended, we can definitely share the presentations.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if we are unable to attend your seminar, which is today I have seen and learned, because life is a learning every moment, every time, every age. So sometimes we are not able to attend. So you must share the person of your team so that we can understand what you have said. So yeah,
Sure,
this
sir.
is my request also.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Sir,
Request. Sir, I
another
will-
facet is that once you are attending a webinar like this, where Jatin or anybody who is very eminent in speaking, there can be certain things which can distract you sitting in the office. But the person who is giving the presentation is completely focused. Therefore, you may, I mean, some lead can break in between, and therefore the certain points do not get registered. So I'm just saying that, for the benefit of all, if at all this presentation is shared, certainly it will help all our colleagues and friends and youngsters who are actually looking into where seems to be a big scope.
Sure, sir. Presentation definitely I will share, and I will also discuss how we can share the recordings as well, whether we need to put it on YouTube because this recording might be very heavy, or we need to cut short the specifics of it. But yeah, definitely very good suggestion, and I will note this. Depending upon how our team can work this out, I mean, we will definitely happy to share anything about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Jatin.
Sure. Thank you, sir. So yeah, thank you, Chatra. Thank you, Tasneem. I'm currently assumed the role of project coordinator. Me being fresher in this particular great session, looking forward to it. Thank you so much. It was also a very good and lovely experience interacting with all of you. And thank you so much.